Oh, perfect. Good deal. Well, today, what we're going to be presenting today, some of our grantees are already familiar with the system. If you've used our grant reporting system and you already have a RAC FID set up, but we want to have Sheila Sloan, who is with our Fiscal and Grants Monitoring Unit. She's going to walk through the user's manual because quite a few of the CBOs are not familiar with our grant reporting system, and we are actually going to have you enter your cost and request cash in this system. So we wanted to give you an overview on this system now, and we're going to end up getting your RAC FID set up for that so that you can access it. But we want to give you an overview now, and then as we start establishing the grants, then we will do a revisit of this and actually walk through the process with you guys with your grants so you know how to enter your cash requests and and your expenditures. So anyway, with that said, Sheila's going to get on now. Yeah, I'm sure we can.
Okay, so I guess, can everyone hear me, I guess? Raise your hand if you can. Okay, good. Now, am I navigating this, or are you, or somebody else?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm kind of don't do too many webinars, but you can have a page down. Okay. So I'm going to briefly go over this manual because a lot of this will not make sense to you until you have your grant and you are able to actually access the system yourself and get in there and function. So when Tammy was saying, we're going to try to have another training session. Also, after you get your grant, and then we can walk through the process at the same time and give you some more assistance, and it'll make a little more sense then. I've tried to make this, kind of like the dummy books, because it's like, you never know. Somebody new coming in, because this system is kind of, it can be confusing, and I've heard that from some people. Tammy's going to send a PDF to you. We'll send this manual to you, but she's also going to send, Judy Hunt's going to send it. We'll send you out the form to fill out to get your RAC FID. And a copy of that form is on the last page of this document, and we'll get this document out to you as well. So first of all, the system is a mainframe computer system. It resides on a server over at CMS. The first thing is some general information. There's our DCEO mailing address. There's, if you need to talk to your grant manager, which in all of your cases, that's going to be Tammy, but that information on her contact is in your grant agreement. The RAC FID is your user ID to get into the system, and then they will set up a temporary password, and you will have to change that. And there are specific password rules that you'll get with your email stating here is your new RAC FID. And if you're in there and something happened and you can't access your grant for, it says your password expired or password revoked, you do have to log into the system at least every 30 to 60 days, or it will revoke your ID. But you'll need to do that anyway because we do require you to enter costs every month by the 20th of each month for the prior month end. So for January, you have to enter all of your costs in by February 20th. If the 20th falls on a weekend, then you have to enter them by that Friday before that date. So keep that in mind. And that is in the manual under the expenditure reporting requirements. There's the information on how to reset your password, the contact information. I've kind of put a sample of what your email should say to them. The key here is the RAC FID needs to be assigned to the person who's going to actually be accessing the system, doing the cost entry and cash requesting, because that is the person who will be at that point in time. They're going to be the ones who's going to log into the system and not be able to access it because their password's revoked or whatever it is, expired, and they're going to need a password reset. If you assign that ID to the executive director of the organization, let's say, when your fiscal officer sends the email, our staff in our IT section won't reset that password because that's not the person assigned to that ID. And only one ID can be assigned per grant. If you're having issues with password resets or you're having some, they won't reset it from the email address there, you can contact Judy Hunt, and there's her contact information, and she can assist you with getting it reset. Cash requests are processed on Mondays and Thursdays. If there are holidays, that does delay it. So keep that in mind. You want to get your cash requests in by 4:30 p.m. the day before. Also on your cost input, try to get those in no later than 4:30 or 5 o'clock on the 20th. As soon as like 5:01, they have actually run reports. So don't wait until 5:30 to try to enter your costs on the 20th because they may not register as that particular month. You may not be able to get them in. And after 4:30, neither Judy and I are here, so don't wait till the last minute and then have to reset your password, and I don't know how long the IT staff are there. So do some due diligence and try to get them in earlier in the day in case there are access issues for your system. If you want direct deposit for your grant, there's the information to contact the comptroller's office to set that up. We don't do that here at our agency. So to access GRS, I've put in the URL that you need to use to access it, and this is the box that will come up, and your username is your RACFID, and then you'll have a password assigned to you that you will, a temporary one, and then you'll have to change it. And then on the next few pages are several of the screens that you'll be using to input your data. The first one is the expenditure reporting. No, this is the first one. This is the main menu, sorry. This is what you'll see when you get logged into the system. And in the top area, I've tried to mark these things based on my instructions below. If anyone finds any errors in this, please let me know. You put your grant number in the very top boxes. The first two digits will be in the first two fields, and it will automatically, I think it automatically jumps over to the next set of fields, and that's the last part of your grant number. So you'll always need to know what your grant number is. So you put your grant number in there, and then you will select which menu item that you want to go to. Most of you will start out using the first one, the cost reporting screen, and to do that you'll just use the F1, and you have to use these gray boxes over on the left side of your screen. Your keyboard keys will not work in this system at this point. Please notice there are three things at the bottom you will not be using as far as menu options, the F9, F11, or F23. Those are of no significance to you. And actually, you guys will probably not even be using the F8 one either. That is something you won't be using. So the next screen, when you do the F1 and you go into your cost reporting, this is the screen where you'll enter your cost. You want to pay very close attention to the expenditure code that is showing at the top on item number 1, because that is the expenditure code that when you enter costs on this screen, that's the code that's going to enter them on. If that's not the code you want to use, you need to either scroll with the PF08 button to get to the correct one, or you will enter the specific code that you want to enter costs on and then select the enter to get to that particular code. You also want to pay attention to which month of costs you're entering. There's a previous month and a current month. So say it's February 20th. So the months will be January and February that show up, just like on this screen. And you would be entering your January cost if it's February. And it will change each month. If the 20th has come and gone, the January and February will probably still show up, but you will not be able to enter any costs on January, and you'll get an error message. You'd have to enter them on February. When you put in your cost, one thing to keep in mind, you do have to put your decimal place and the cents. If you don't, the system will actually put the cents and put the decimal point 2 places to the left of where the last digit is. So it will correct it for you. And if you find that if you do make an error or something, you can fix it. To reduce costs or to back them out, then you would just put the information in, make sure you put the decimal and the cents in, and put a minus sign at the end, and that will correct the entry. We have a question on here from Christopher Coleman. If you're set up with the comptroller office for other grants, I believe, Christopher, you will need to contact them when you get your grant, and they will give you like a 2-digit code that you'll have to communicate with our accounting office. and they can then put that on that grant, and then it'll be set up for direct deposit at that point. And if you do have a RACF ID, Emily, if you have a RACF ID that you already use for WIOA, yes, you would use the same RACF ID. You just need to let Tammy know what that is so she can make sure that that is on your grant. Okay, and once you enter the cost, you don't have to do any pressing enters or anything like that as you do the cost. Once you do for expenditure code 1000, you would just need to use the F8 button to scroll to the next category. Make sure it's the right category that you want to enter costs for. Put the costs in, scroll to the next one. When you get to the last one and you put your costs in, then you want to transfer over to your expenditure summary screen, which is your PF01 button. And then that will take you over to the next screen on the next page. And I know this is all confusing at this point. We'll walk through it when you get your grant. It'll make more sense at that point. So the next screen, when you first come to this screen after you've entered your costs, in the uncertified cost column, it will have those costs. So what you want to do at that point is verify that you've entered them correctly. And if they are correct and they're in the right lines and everything is exactly the way you want it, then you would press your PF02 button, and that will certify those costs. And some of these menu things I'm telling you, these menu options are at the bottom of the screen, so you can obviously see where I'm talking about because it says certified costs reported down there at the bottom of the screen under the menu thing. So that will certify the costs. It will move them from uncertified over to certified. And then if you do find an error on these costs, you can go back and fix it before you certify them. And that is labeled in number 3. Tells you how to do that. You just do the PF04 to return back to your expenditure reporting screen, find the expenditure code you need to fix, and make the correction. If you just need to add costs to what you put, say you put $5 and you meant to put $50, you can go back and you can just put 45 in there. You don't have to back the $5 out and then put the 50 in. You can just add $45 to it. Make sure you put your decimal place in the zeros, or otherwise it'll put them in for you, and you'll be back to fix it again. And once these entries have been confirmed and you've certified those costs, if you need to do a cash request to request cash to cover those expenditures that you've just put in, you would then transfer over to the cash request screen by pressing the PF05 button, and that'll take you to the next screen, which is your cash request screen. You do want to check to make sure that you have cash available to request in the amount of what you're going to request. Chances are at the beginning of the grant that's going to be fine. When you get closer to the end, that could be, you should have enough cash because you won't be able to enter costs in excess of the total grant. And then you would enter your cash request that you want to enter for this point in time, and keep in mind that your cash request should be equal to or lower than the cost that you have put in. Our accounting office does watch that very closely. And you will be on like a reimbursement basis on these grants as well, is what I understand. And then to certify that cash request, you do need to put your decimal place and your cents again in here. Then you would press the PF02 button, and that certifies it. Okay, so say you enter a cash request and you notice that you did it wrong. As long as this cash request is still in the pending status, then you can void it with the PF06 key, and then you could re-enter a new one. However, if it's not in a pending status, you will need to contact Judy Hunt and have her deny the cash request when it comes through for processing, and then you would be able to correct it. Or you can let that one go through and then put an additional one in later if you've made a mistake. It's kind of up to you how you want to handle that at that point. But you can void it as long as it's still in pending. Where are we at now? The next couple of screens are basically inquiry screens to give you an idea of, you can just look at your grant as a whole. The first one is the cash request tracking. Say you want to see what cash requests you've requested from the grant. You want to see kind of a status, or you want to look up and see what the warrant number is for it that's been issued. You can do that on this 354 cash request tracking screen. All you need to do is put in your grant number and press the the enter button, and it should bring up all of your cash requests. If you have cash requests that exceed the screen limit, you press the PF08 and go to the next screen. If you want to see the warrant information, if the comptroller has issued a warrant on it, our system updates overnight with data from them. So if they issue it today, you wouldn't be able to see it until at least tomorrow. You can see it by pressing the PF01 button, and it will show you the warrant information. Or you can access the comptroller's website to look up the vendor inquiries and vendor payments on that. I'll try to put together some information on how to access that system as well for our next training, so you'll have it so you can kind of look and see if something's been issued or whatever from them. The next screen, if you want to just kind of see your grant as a whole, you can look this up. It will give you the expenditure codes, the description of that code. It'll tell you what your budget is. It'll tell you what cost you've entered today and what the balance is of each of those budget lines and your total grant. All you have to do is put in your grant number in that area marked and press the enter. If you want to see a specific period in time, you can do that. You can narrow it down in the from and through fields, and like you want to look at a specific quarter in time, you can do that. You just put the month and the year. If you just want to see what have I entered through October of this year, then all you would have to do is use the through field. You wouldn't do anything from the from field because it'll do it from the beginning of the grant. The next screen, you may or may not use this one. It is a screen that will show you all of the entries you have made on this grant. When you entered your costs, you would put in your grant number, press your, and then go down here to the all under view costs, and you would put an X in that field and press enter, and then it will show you everything for each budget line. It'll show you all of the entries for each one. And you scroll through the whole thing by using the PF08 until you get to the end, and at the end it will give you a grand total of all of the entries that have been made for that grant for all budget lines. If, for instance, you had a budget modification, you may not ever use this. I didn't highlight it on here because you may not, but you can say view budget, and you can do all, or, you know, and you can see all the different changes that have been made to the budget if that's something you were interested in. You may or may not be. And then as far as exiting the system, all you do is close your browser window. It's that simple. The PF button, homework, hangout, club out question, are the PF buttons and the function buttons, F1, etc. the same? They are actually the same, but you will not be able to use your keyboard keys. You have to use the gray buttons on the left side of the screen that come up on this web application, because your keyboard keys will not work. You can hit them all day long, but they're not going to do anything for you. In fact, your system will just sit there and you'll be like, well, why isn't it doing anything? Well, you just have to use those buttons. And yeah, it's as simple as just exiting the system. Now, the last page is the RACF ID form that we will be sending out to you. You need to fill that out with who the ID is going to be assigned to, their phone number, their address, email, and under LWIA number, you can just put not applicable, NA, because you're not, unless you are an LWIA. If you already have a RACF ID that you use for DCEO grants or WIOA grants, then you can use that same ID, and you just need to let Tammy know that if you have one assigned to you already from our agency. And then you would just sign it down here under applicant signature and date it, and then email that back, I guess, to Tammy? To Judy. To Judy. Okay, to Judy Hunt, and her contact information is up there in the front section about the password reset. So email it to Judy once you get that completed, and then we will process it, and then you'll get an email with your new RACF ID, the temporary password information, and the password requirements, and you'll have to log in. The thing is, when you get that email, log in that day or the next day, because that temporary password is only good for about 48 hours. So if you don't log in, then we have to call and have them reset it again, and then they'll have to reset the password. So log in, make sure you can get in the system, change your password, and then make sure you log in at least every 30 days, which you should, because you have to enter costs.
How long is your password good for?
It's good for about 30
30
35 days.
It's good for 60 days, but you have to.
It is good for 60 days now?
You have to log in before 30 days.
Yeah, you have to log in before 30 days or it will kind of, revoke it or reject your password or something. All right, what questions do we have? Okay, your homework hangout club, we'll have to check with Tammy on that. They said, also we've been told previously that we would be receiving startup plus 1 month costs up front.
Yeah.
How is this handled with GRS in terms of cost reporting and cash requests? Well, the cash request, if that's what they're doing up front, then that cash request will automatically be issued probably upon execution of the grant. Am I right, Tammy? Is that what they're going to do?
Yeah, in our contract with DHS, it's allowed for you guys to do your upfront costs and 1 month of anticipated cost. And after that, it will be reimbursement. So in the process of our grant negotiations, you're going to have to let us know what your upfront costs and anticipated first month costs are. Now, keep in mind, this program is really starting to roll out in March when we're going to start seeing clients. The rest of this month and a big chunk of March, we're doing training with DHS offices on the orientation process. So we're anticipating, the first random assignment will happen in Chicago, and that is going to be on the 9th. So after the 9th is when we'll start referring clients to appropriate CBOs for training. So, that's part of our grant negotiations. We're going to have a slow startup, so your costs for that 1 month, like I said, you have to anticipate it, but the money is going to follow the clients. So that first month, you may have just a few at a time coming to your door. You may have, 10 or 12. We just don't know how the flow is going to be yet. But that's one thing that we'll negotiate as we're doing these grants with that. So, but the process, what I want you to do then is Judy's going to get the list of the primary contacts that we've got for the grantees, and she's going to send an email out to you with the procedures manual, the GRS manual. What I want you to do, obviously if the primary contact is not the person that's going to be doing the cash requests and costs in the system, forward that on to whoever's going to be responsible for that, and then have them, complete that form and email it back to Judy. Judy will be your primary contact with the GRS system, and I want you guys to, establish that relationship with whoever's going to be doing this with Judy. So, if you do have to reset your password, she'll know who they are and who the individuals are. So that is about it. Is there anything else you want to discuss? There's a couple other items on the agenda. Lydia, who is with SIU, she works with WorkNet, and you may have already talked to her. She's reaching out to the agencies, and she's setting up your WorkNet accounts if you don't have one set up, so she's going to help you get those set up. And then she's also going to be working with you to set up your work programs in WorkNet. Now, your work programs is what's driving the orientation also and how we direct them. Based upon, the right fit for the program. So in the orientation, there's a lot of information we're collecting on these clients and their application and their assessment tests that they're doing. And then a referral is being made to the organizations based upon the client's desires as far as their training desires, and then what appears to be an appropriate fit for them based upon their, maybe their academics or their physical capacity or a lot of different characters like that. So Lydia is working with you guys. Now, we're still doing grant negotiations. I'm still missing 5 of those documents from organizations that I had requested in last Friday. So I'm going to email those organizations to get those documents in. And then we'll be communicating with you one-on-one on the grant terms. In some cases, we may be, negotiating your performance measures. If you have an extremely low retention rate, we're going to want to see that higher. If you have more than 5% in administration, that's going to have to be reduced because you can only have 5% in administration. So those types of things. And we may be aligning, programs. So we may tell one organization, we really want you to do this training program and focus on that, and maybe not this other one that was identified. So those are the types of things that are going to happen during the negotiations. And they will actually start not next week, but the week after. We have got a full schedule next week with training with the orientation and DHS staff, and then we also have NDRC, who is our evaluation team, that's coming in and doing some pretty extensive training and random assignments for the DHS staff. So the good news for you guys is you don't have to deal with any of that. It's all going to be done on the DHS side, and you don't have to worry about random assignment or any of that. What you really need to be doing is just making sure that you guys are geared up so when these clients come in that you can provide services to them. For those of you that have been E&T providers before, there are certain requirements related to these individuals, and those requirements exist for them still even when they go into the EPIC program. Part of that is at least 80 hours of engagement a month, 20 hours a week. So keep that in mind as we're developing this program, because even if the training program is not available within a couple weeks, you still need to have some activities that they're going to be involved in so that they can meet those hours, because those hours dictate their compliance with SNAP benefits and eligibility to stay on SNAP benefits. So anyway, the grant negotiations, I still will communicate with those 5 agencies to get that back in, and we'll be communicating with you one-on-one. We want to get these up and running. Well, March 1st is the start of the program. That's when we're starting to move clients. So we need to get your grant agreements done early in March so we can get the program going. Once again, part of what the evaluation group is asking us is to have a test period. So we're going to have a 2 to 3 month test period, and it is going to be slow. March will be probably very slow. April, hopefully pick up, and then May really start moving them. But the March and April are really going to be looking at the program design and retooling it if it's working in certain areas, changing stuff if it's not working. So that's our focus for the first 2 months. In that, not only on the referral process, but also on you guys' side and services. So anything, we want a two-way exchange of information of what's working and not working. And we talked about the upfront cost. The evaluation team is also going to have a data cost report. That'll be a quarterly report, and they're developing that for us right now. So we will have another opportunity, obviously, to get with you guys on that. It's probably going to be like an Excel spreadsheet that will be submitted quarterly, dealing with specific costs related to this EPIC project. So that's a lot for today. Now, we are not going to be having a webinar next week because we are doing training, but the following week we will. And then we're going to definitely try and schedule an in-person training session. Tentatively, we're looking at the 16th or the 23rd, so just keep those open. It may have to get pushed back depending upon processes of what we're working on right now. But that's what we're looking at. So between now and then, we're going to finalize our procedures manual for the CBOs. We're going to, part of that training will also be, the requirements for being an E&T, SNAP E&T provider, and, what you have to do as far as keeping the SNAP participants eligible and reporting for that side of it. So there's a lot still to come. Illinois WorkNet is our tool that we're going to be using for all of the client data. The applications will be in there already because that's part of what DHS is doing. We have an iStep career planning tool that's in there that's going to be used. And then all of their services will be monitored in there. If you did anything with the youth program, the Summer Youth Employment Program, you're familiar with the work experience part of that. That's a module that'll be real similar to what was in there. I don't know if we have anybody that did ADAM projects. I don't think a lot of the LEs did that, but the services that'll be similar to what was in that particular project also. So a lot more training's coming up. There's going to be a lot, offered through Illinois WorkNet also. So with that said,
I've got a question from Mr. Lee here. I think he's asking about Natasha's question.
Okay, let's see. Who do we provide that information to?
I think he's talking about Natasha's.
If you have not already provided the name of the person who will be entering the training program into Illinois WorkNet, please do so now. Yeah, you can provide that name right in the chat box right now. If you have not provided the name of the person who will be entering the programs, and this is dealing with Illinois WorkNet, and this is your program, so it's dealing with your training programs and WorkNet. We're looking, the training, just tentatively March 16th and 23rd. I know that the Easter holiday's coming in that 25th weekend. So just pencil them in, just kind of a save the date at this point on those. See if there's any other questions. Give you a few more minutes to answer questions. We're really excited about this. There's a lot of work that's gone into the front end of this.
Which is the grant agreement again.
When will the contracts be done? The hope is to have them done by mid-March. The grant date itself is January 1 through December 31st of 2017, so you'll be able to incur costs like, for now for your startup costs. But the actual, getting them to you as executed, it's going to be mid-March by the time we get it through all of our processes and get done with the grant negotiations and everything. So if the executed grant is planned to start on March 1, when can we expect to receive the first payment of startup costs? Once the grants are executed, it is 10 days after you request cash?
Yeah, well, it has to be obligated to the comptroller first, so.
Yeah, obligated to the comptroller, and it's approximately 10 days from when you request cash, and that's through the system that Sheila explained to you guys. And like I said, once the grants are established, we'll have another webinar, walking through this process again so that it's very clear. But we want to make sure you get your RAC FIDs and set up everything up front as much as we can.
CJ's question.
Would it be possible to define what is allowable under startup costs? Should we wait for further instructions before sending that amount? Well, your startup costs are basically will fall underneath the line items that are in the budget. So it would be, I know that some agencies that are doing hiring in specific areas, so it's getting your resources available so when you start getting these clients that you can serve them in accordance with the line item budgets that were provided to you guys. March 9th is the date. The first clients are expected to be distributed to our programs, yet the grant agreements are not expected to be executed until mid-March. Can you clarify this? Yeah, March 9th is when the first random assignment is going to happen in Chicago. Like I said, once again, it's going to be a slow start. So those clients, once random assignment is done, then they will be referred to the CBOs, and then the CBOs will have to reach out to those clients for services. But once again, these grants have a January 1 start date on them. So costs can be incurred, up through January, 1st with that.
We can't get costs out to them until the grant's executed.
Yeah, we just can't get cash out to you until the grants are executed. When can we expect to receive startup costs? Like I said, once again, once the grants are executed, you need to start thinking about this because your startup costs, predominantly are going to be, this month and March, and then like April. I would anticipate startup costs will be February and March, and then April will be your program costs because March we're going to be starting programs, but April was going to probably be the first real rollout when some of you grantees are going to be seeing clients. And even in March, when we start this process, especially in Chicago because we have multiple providers in Chicago, so the clients are going to the services that are the appropriate fit for them based upon their desires also. So at this point, we really don't know what that flow is going to be. Now, downstate, there's only one provider in all areas except for one area where there's two. So downstate, those providers are getting all the clients, and they have multiple sectors that they're providing training for. So the downstate, you pretty much you'll know you're getting those clients. Up in Chicago, it just depends. It depends upon what's appropriate and the right fit for the clients. Can you tell us more about the referral process? Will we get something in writing by email? Yeah, we can give you some information on the referral process, and actually we can send you to a link that has information and a PowerPoint related to the referral process. Once again, this happens at DHS. The first contact you have with them is after they've gone through random assignment, and you will only have contact with the treatment group individuals, the ones that get the expanded services. So there is a large process for the referral part of it, and then making the appropriate selections. And we can send you to that site. We did have 2 videos that we displayed, and you can revisit those videos too as far as the random assignment process and what and what the orientation process is. So we'll get that information to you. But once again, that's done at the DHS side, and it does affect you because it depends upon referrals, but referrals are based upon best fit. Any other questions? Doesn't look like anybody's typing at this time. It's really going to be exciting. This is going to be a lot of work. We're expecting a lot from you guys. You guys are great organizations. Once they're in the treatment group, they are always in the treatment group, and the more clients we lose out of this program from the treatment group, the worse results we're going to have. So we really need to put a lot of effort into these individuals that are being referred to keep them engaged and keep them in training, or if they can't complete the training program, to realign them with other training, or at least to get them a job. So this is, like I said, once in the treatment group, always in the treatment group, and it's really going to have an impact on the final results of this program, and hopefully a positive impact. Hopefully that at the end of this, they'll realize that putting a little more money into the individuals on the front end and offering them good quality training, and then having the capacity to get them off SNAP benefits is it's a good return on the investment. And we can continue this potentially even through matching funds through the Department of Agriculture. So, well, with that said, thank you everybody for participating, and we will be communicating via email. Judy will be sending you an email out regarding the RAC FIDs, and we'll be following up here again soon. Have a great afternoon.